We have estradiol, estrogen, it's rising. This is the midpoint of the cycle. So typically women, they bleed on day 1 and it lasts for about 3 to 7 days. And around day 14-ish, that's when we ovulate. Now some women may ovulate a little bit earlier or a little bit later. Stress can definitely impact when we ovulate. But just for general, on a 28-day cycle, day 14 is typically when we ovulate. And so at that time, as estrogen is rising, we start to get this juicy cervical fluid. So that's why I'm talking about the juice, right? The juice that we're feeling. It is not arousal fluid, it is completely different. It actually is released from the cervix to help the sperm live in a very wet, moist condition to help you get pregnant. So at this time it is not a yeast infection, it is just this wet, juicy cervical fluid that we experience, which is our natural fertility, is our natural state. And we're going to be talking more about how to build that fertility, that Amrita fluid. We're going to be talking about that today with some supporting herbs and practices to enhance that vitality. So after that, this is our ovulation, and again, this relates to summer. So when our estrogen is rising, that's our most expansive time of the month. Testosterone is also high, so we feel very amped up, we feel supercharged, our sex drive is like very high. And at that time, that's when most people are calling in their mate. So if you know your cycle and you know that you're super excited at that time of the month, you can plan. You know, you can plan if you want to abstain from making a baby, or you can plan if you want to have a baby to really track that cervical fluid. And I actually teach all about this in my online course called Goddess in Rhythm. I have some cards over there for it. It also has an e-cookbook on how to eat for your cycle for each of these phases. So that's over there if you want to learn how to track your cycle. But after the egg bursts through, it has a 6 to 24 hour window of living for you to get pregnant, and then eventually it'll die. So at that point, you will no longer be in your ovulatory phase. You will move into your luteal phase, which is your inner fall. And at that point of your cycle, you're no longer fertile. So this isn't taught in high school and in middle school. For some reason they want to like keep the women small. They want to keep like the divine feminine energy contained. But it is rising, ladies, right now. We are having divine feminine explosion. And eventually it's gonna rise, and I just want to say thank you for all the men here, like holding space as well, because it's rising within you too, and eventually everything is gonna level out into this divine union of sacred feminine and sacred masculine, and that's what we're truly going for in this time period. So this is the time you want to get pregnant if you're wanting to get pregnant, around your ovulation time. But after the egg dies, then you're no longer able to get pregnant at that time. And this is all part of the fertility awareness method. You can check it out. It consists of taking your temperature every morning to know, to track it, because this first half of the cycle right here, your temperature is gonna be lower with the estrogen. And as soon as you ovulate, we've got this new hormone coming in called progesterone. You see it rise right here in this green. So progesterone is, that's going to be heating your body up. It's a warming hormone. So you'll notice if you're taking your temperature every morning with this fertility awareness method, that before you ovulate, you'll have a low basal body temperature. And then after you ovulate, the day after or so, it'll rise, and it'll continue to rise until you get your menstrual cycle, and then it'll drop. And so once you see that rise in temperature, you know that you're no longer ovulating. So I encourage you to look into this more before trying it, because there are definitely a couple other fertility signs and things that you need to track. But again, that's in my course, as well as you can check out the book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, which is an amazing goddess Bible. I love it. It gives a lot of graphs, and it really helps to understand how to use this method. So as progesterone starts to rise right here, this is going to sustain the uterine lining. So if you do get pregnant, it is going to hold the uterine lining intact so that baby can grow and there won't be any miscarriages. And this part of the cycle is the longest. It lasts about 10 to 14 days until you bleed, and at that time there's no longer any of this juicy cervical fluid, but instead we have this grounding energy where suddenly we want to nest, list, we want to organize. So this is a really good time of the month. Maybe you were playing a little bit too much, dancing a little bit too much in your ovulatory phase in your summer, and now it's time to ground with the luteal phase energy of fall and really finish some of these projects, right? It's that back to school feeling like, okay, fall's coming. What am I needing to finish and work on? What am I getting ready to release this winter? And then eventually progesterone's gonna drop, you're gonna get your cycle, and this is kind of where the PMS comes in. And so we talked a lot about hormones and PMS in my cooking class at Nourishment Lab the other day. If you have any questions, I'm gonna be in the Pacemakers Tea House for a little red tent gathering after this. So you're welcome to ask questions about that there. But we're gonna talk a little bit about the moon cycle too, how the moon matches up with this energy. So when the moon is dark, sure. Oh yeah, we have some microgreens over here, some sunflower greens. If anybody wants some, there's a lot of nutrition in here, so you're welcome to have some. So with the new moon energy, so that's dark, right? The moon is dark. It is a time that harnesses our shadows. And so whether you're bleeding on the new moon or you're not, the new moon is a time of more internal work. What are you letting go of? Because when we are in our shadows, that's where maybe our patterns are coming up, maybe our childhood behaviors or the things that we're working to release in this lifetime. So I encourage you to honor that space and that time to know what's coming up each month, to let go. And then when and then after the new moon, the moon goes into waxing. And so with that, the moon is now getting brighter and getting lighter. And so this matches up with our follicular phase, where our follicular phase energy is all that growth. With the waxing moon energy, that's all about this new energy, new ideas. What are you building into this world? And then after that, when the moon becomes full, that can match up with our ovulation, right? Because it's this fullness, fertility energy. The moon is bright. It's illuminating everything. That's a time of celebration. That's a time of hanging out with your friends, your goddess sisters, and really getting together and maybe sharing a meal, cooking together, or just dancing. Maybe going out skinny dipping, getting naked under the full moon, howling, whatever you want. And then the moon is waning after that. And at that time, it's starting to decrease its light and go back into dark. So that's a time of letting go. So at that point, you may feel that your energy is now starting to ground and starting to come back down. So doing some more yoga poses that are very grounding, some journaling, just organization, things like that. That's a really great time to invoke more of those grounding practices. Maybe go out into the earth more, put your feet on the bare earth. So we can actually do these rituals with the moon phases and live in harmony with it. And many women's menstrual cycles do flow into that rhythm with the moon. So many women do bleed with the new moon, as well as women also ovulate with the new moon. I'm actually in that process right now. And so it's just working with the moon phase energy and your own energy and kind of tapping into how that feels. Because really this is all about honoring your body. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how do we stay juicy throughout life, right? So when I said juicy earlier, it's fertility, it's sensuality, it's bliss, it's pleasure, it's passion, it's creativity, all of these things. And so all of us probably, well, maybe some of you go to festivals and work here, but probably a lot of us are in modern society. Maybe some of us have corporate jobs. Maybe a lot of us have roles we're playing, right? Maybe we're mothers, caregivers. We are, taking care of our children. We are taking care of our aging parents. We are bosses. We're CEOs. We're business owners. We're employees. We have all of these roles we're trying to play, and we're still trying to be there for our community. So we're trying to juggle all these roles. And then some days it may feel like you are chugging espresso just to go through the motions to get your work done so you can go to bed and hopefully rest and then start it all over again, right? Because this is the modern day world that we live in. But I also want to thank you all for being here, because I believe that this is the new world, and everything we're learning here, we are taking back into our societies. We're sharing this wisdom of connection and truth and creativity with the society that exists beyond this. And so thank you for doing your sacred part to that. So society can get us a little run down, right? And so this is what leaks our Shakti, our Chi energy. So when we are feeling scattered and we're feeling flustered and we're feeling exhausted and we're feeling stressed and we're just going through the motions, our Chi energy is literally being leaked everywhere. It is not being harnessed. And so what can we do, right, to invoke this juicy feminine living all the time? So I'm going to share with you. Okay. So you want to honor your inner goddess or man god every day with self-care practices. So ladies, if there's anything I can teach you from this workshop, is self-care. And self-care is something that's talked about quite a bit, but really you can invoke any of these practices, what feels right for you in that moment, and it may constantly change depending on what you need. And I'm going to share some with you today. I've actually defined self-care, and I'm going to go through all of it. But when you actually take time to just enjoy life, to just leisurely create, to just be in your essence, to be wild, to be messy, to be relaxed, to get naked and go out into Mother Earth, whatever it feels right for you, when you take that space of just pure acceptance and love and self-love, then that is when the magic happens. That's when all this craziness, this overwhelm suddenly starts to come back into your body, your Chi energy gets harnessed, you can focus it, and then you can channel it in what you want to put it into. So maybe it's more time with your family. Maybe you're writing a book. Maybe you're creating a business. Maybe you want to perform on stage. Whatever it is, you can do this as you harness that energy and you care for your bodies. And when you truly care for yourself, that's when you can truly take care of others, right? Because we got to fill our cup up first and let it overflow, so then we can be truly present with others. So we're gonna go a bit into this. So self-care, the S, I defined it as sacred sisterhood. So I'm actually from the Midwest and I lead women's circles called Red Tents. Is anyone familiar with Red Tents here, moon circles? Yeah, awesome. So sacred sisterhood, we used to have this tribal living where we all were together and we would all, actually it was said that many women bled all together during the new moon, because as the moon gets darker, that creates more melatonin. It's a time for rest. Melatonin is a resting hormone. So women would come together and they would bleed together, and that's where they shared ancient tribal wisdom with each other, herbalism, how to birth babies, how to successfully go through moon pause, just supporting each other in divine feminine empowerment. So I encourage you, if you have red tents in your community, go to one. If you don't, start one. You are all beautiful divine goddesses, and you have that power inside you to start whatever you want to start, to create whatever you want to create. So if you feel called to share and to hold space with the divine feminine, I encourage you. That's how I started. I just started doing it out of my home. Like 2 people showed up the first time, and now we have an organization in Indianapolis where many women come each month.